He is a world-renowned wrestler, trainer, author, entrepreneur, and he's currently the CEO and owner of the world-renowned OVW right here in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm very privileged to be able to call this man not only my boss, but I would also call him a mentor of mine and a friend. This is Al Snow. Al, how are you doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you guys for having me on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
So this interview will hopefully be a little bit different than other interviews you may have done in the past, Al. I mean, obviously, besides knowing the interviewees, I guess, or interviewers a little more maybe today, is we like to ask not questions about the things necessarily that you're doing. We want to know more about the man behind everything and what exactly makes you tick. And we really want to spend this hour really trying to peel back the brains behind, well, really everything that you've done over your whole career, and really want to find out exactly why you are the man that you are. And you're one that always teaches why often is something that needs to be more concentrated on inside the squared circle, more so than necessarily what. And so thinking of that why, I'd like to actually first start by going back and talking a little bit about what the heck even got you into wrestling, and what was your upbringing like?
Well, as far as my upbringing, it was, pretty typical working class, middle class family. Both my mother and my father's families are from Eastern Kentucky. My father's is from Ashland, and then my mother's is from down around further south, Eastern, in the Pikeville, Pikeville, Hazard, that kind of area. And it's the, that Appalachian culture where, a lot of the immigrants went when they first got here because of all the work with railroads and things. My great grandfather immigrated from Italy and went there to work on the railroad. And that was how my father's family came to be there. And I just grew up in a kind of a small town in Ohio, in the northwest part of the state called Lima. It at one time was the largest oil and gas field in the world back in the 1800s. And then, they were part of that Rust Belt. They were known for manufacturing trains and things like that, but all of that started to die out, and the economy started to die, and so did the city itself a little bit. As I was growing up, population started to drop. But and I always tell everybody that I believe I'm now probably the most famous person from Lima, Ohio, because I outlasted Phyllis Diller and Hugh Downs. They passed away, so just through attrition, I've become the most famous person, I think, out of the town right now. And I grew up in that town, and back then, when it was regional, we had the Ed Farhat's territory was in part of Ohio, and it was all of Ohio and Michigan, and he would run but by his standards, Lima, Ohio was like a spot show, even though he'd draw probably 2,000 people there at the local ice arena. And I grew up watching that on TV, and then the territory went under. There really wasn't any wrestling in that area for several years, until I believe around 1976, it was probably 77, was the advent of cable television. You guys all live in a world where you can't fathom that, but at that time, TV's only got 13 channels. Even when you got cable television, you only got 13 channels. And but part of that, getting that cable television, was getting TBS, Turner Broadcasting, and Saturday nights at 6:00, Georgia Championship Wrestling came on, and that was it. I was 14, and I made the decision right then and there. I was like, that this is what I'm going to do. And I never looked back. I never had a plan B. There was no alternative for me. That was it. That was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Why? To this day, I have no idea. So, you know,
I'm curious. So you came from, it sounds like a very hardworking family, immigrants who came here and just wanted to do what they could and work with their hands. Were they
Yeah.
supportive of this decision of you to pursue the stream of wrestling?
Not at all.
Okay.
I mean, they were. My father was supportive. You know, he very much was a mindset of you make your own decisions. You know, and my mom actually at one point proclaimed she was supportive, but she proclaimed, you know, what are you trying to do? Kill me? And you know, I was like, well, no. I mean, if I was trying to kill you, I'd push you down the basement stairs. But you live in a ranch, and we don't have a basement, so that's not going to work. So, you know. And I, you know, the rest of the family, whenever we gathered for family reunions, etc., I was basically the joke of the family because of the fact that, you know, I was the first person, I was the only person who had ran away with the circus, so to speak, had not went and done a regular 9 to 5 or, you know, everyday job.
Do they still give you the same grief, or did it take a while?
No.
Okay.
The moment that where things changed was when I'd say the second run in ECW where ECW was now being televised around, you know, not just in a regional area over in Pennsylvania, but was slowly starting to get out. Granted, it was always late Saturday nights at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning or a Friday night, but you could see me on TV. Well, then that meant now I was successful, you know, in their minds, and as a result, you know, it was no longer I wasn't the family joke. It was now, oh yeah, I tell people you're my cousin, or you know, could you sign this for me, and so I can prove to this guy that you're really related to me, that kind of thing. So it dramatically did change. Yeah.
Funny how that works.
Yeah.
Right.
And they always tell you, I've always supported you, even back then. It's like, no, you didn't. You know, you made fun of it. You thought it was funny, and you know, which is, I understand, but you know, you hear people tell you all the time, you know, if you have a dream, to pursue it and not to listen to other people. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, if I had listened to those people, I certainly would never have lived the life that I've gotten to live and go the places I've gotten to go and do the things I've gotten to do and have the experiences I've had. I would have just quit. You know, I'd have given up.
Yeah. So what would you say is the coolest and most unique place your job has taken you to?
Oh boy, that's hard. That would be very tough. I mean, please don't misunderstand. I'm not bragging, you know,
right.
because I've been very blessed. I've been very grateful to have had these opportunities to go and see these things and do these things. And I think I've been on 6 continents. I joke that I just have to go to Antarctica, put my feet down, and I'll have been on all 7 continents in the world. I've been in every state in the United States except for Alaska yet, which I really want to go. I've been in all the provinces of Canada. I've been in Mexico, all over. I think last count, I was up to 38, maybe, different countries that I've been in. I've went on several safaris in South Africa. I went to the very southern tip of South Africa and seen where the Indian and Atlantic Ocean meet, which is incredible. I've, dove off a 80-foot high waterfall in Iceland, dove into the North Atlantic Ocean, 33 miles from the North Pole, which was extremely cold, on a black beach. You know, I've seen the Northern Lights. Just incredible stuff. You know, in India, you know, we're in a traffic jam because there's an elephant on the road. You're sitting there looking at a giant elephant that's just blocked traffic and nobody can get around it. You know, probably, I mean, the experiences are amazing, absolutely incredible experiences. But I think the thing that I value the most are all the people that I've gotten to meet and interact with and build relationships with, not only here but around the world. You know, it's been been a great ride. Really has.
Speaking of experiences on a different end of things, I've had the good fortune of having dialogues with you and a person that we both know who goes by the name of Adam Revolver on OVW, who tends to have alternative opinions of a lot of things. And of course, he classically has, at least in my eyes, classically, you and him have had diatribes about his non-belief of ghosts, but you've had some interesting experiences, actually some actual experiences at the Davis Arena, but also, another one that I know you've talked about from when you were younger, and you've used this multiple times to try to dispute his arguments, but every time he can't really come up with a reason for the story.
He gives he gives the worst rebuttals. I mean, I would at least admire his argumentative skills if he didn't just hang on going, well, that's mass hypnosis, or something ridiculous like that. It's like, in order for it to be mass hypnosis, you have to have a preconceived suggestion to put in there for it to work, and there was no such thing as that. So yeah, he's fascinating.
But I was wondering if you would expand upon the experience that you did have with your brother.
Sure. Yeah,
I'd love to have you share that.
When as I was growing up, my mother and father got divorced. My mother remarried. We moved to Dayton, Ohio. She married a man who, his wife had committed suicide. She had killed herself. So my brothers, I have an older sister who passed away from leukemia. Her name's Donna. My older brother Dave is 1 year older than me. My brother Rod's 2 years younger than me. My brother Chris is 3 years younger than me. See, I'm telling you guys stuff I don't tell anybody.
Right. That's cool.
And my youngest brother Con is 13 years younger than me. So we moved into a house out in Trotwood, Madison, Ohio, and it was kind of a ranch type house. And if you can imagine, as you're looking at your screen, to your left is the kitchen. That's opened to like a dining area. That's right there. And then, but there's a doorway, and then that walks out into it was a screened-in porch. It was a sun porch that we would eat dinner at, and it was glassed in. And there were, to your right, there are some windows that are open to this glassed-in porch area. So in the far, as you look out through the doorway to your far left-hand corner, is an old pole lamp like they used to make back in the 50s and 60s. It goes from ceiling to the floor, and it has alternating. On the right is a lamp, down at the bottom, left is a lamp in the middle, and then up at the top is another one. And the glass globes, so that they would hang, would have a lip on the edge of them that you would place up into the fixture, and then you'd tighten 3 screws or 4 screws around that would hold the globe in place. So in order, whenever you had to change a light bulb, you would have to undo all 4 screws, pull the globe down, which a lot of times wasn't easy because you get caught, and then screw a light bulb out, put a new one in, put that globe back on. So the reason I explain all this is I was standing in the doorway, watching my brother Dave, who was he was standing at the corner of the table, of the dining room table, and that light was in the corner, probably anywhere from 7 to 8 feet away, I'd say. At the minimum, was 7 to 8 feet away. My brother Rod was to the right of me, and he was up on a chair looking through the window, and I think we were basically just busting Dave's balls. Both of us were, because he had just gotten in trouble for not setting the table, and we were basically busting his balls about the fact he got in trouble. So I'm standing there, and we're all me and Rod are laughing at Dave. And then I watched, and Rod saw the same thing. The globe on the middle of the light literally come down, stop for just a brief second, and then shoot diagonally and crash at the feet of my brother Dave, who was standing by the table. Both Rod and I saw this. Both of us looked at each other at the same moment, and my mom and my stepfather came around the corner from the kitchen to start yelling at him, and we had to both defend him that he was nowhere near the lamp when the globe broke. It literally dropped, stopped, and then shot across the room at an angle at his feet.
Wow.
It was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen. So when I tell that story to Adam, he uses the fact that, and much like in a lot of charismatic churches where people experience the Holy Spirit, which, you know, because the pastor or priest or whatever you want to call him, reverend, does a lot of, much like a magician, they do a lot of pre-suggestion. They sit there and they slowly build the heat to where finally you convince yourself of the experiences. None of that happened in this moment. It all just occurred for both myself and my brother, who was an eyewitness, because according to Adam, there's never an eyewitness. We were physically apart. We had never had a conversation about the lamp or anything else, and it just occurred. So it was an amazing thing to see.
Yeah, it was funny that his suggestion was mass hypnosis, as if you all, like, who hypnotized for all that?
And how did we get together so that we could be hypnotized prior to, you know, and what was the gain of it to do that? There was, his counter arguments are sometimes ridiculous.
Yeah, we could probably spend a whole day talking about some of the conspiracies that he goes off about, but we'll digress.
But both of them can have a reality show just on their debates would be enough to entertain the masses.
Well, I think that would. Go ahead.
Sometimes I'll say stuff just to stir him up, you know, and just to, you know, or I'll react to him just because I know then it'll get him to react more. So I'll just do it just to have fun.
Yeah, he gets very fired up. You see the sweat coming down his bald head, and
he turns he actually gets colored during that time.
He'll flush. He'll get red. His head will turn beet red.
He will. Yeah, it's funny.
Al, are you wearing one of your watches right now?
Not at the moment. I'm not. No.
I did want to ask you about that, because that's something that I know that occasionally you'll show off some of your collection on social media, and I was curious because I don't think I've ever really heard what kind of drew your interest in watches. Have you always had an interest in what kind of cool watches do you have in your collection?
Well, I've always been fascinated with watches. I see them as pieces of art, and one of the good things, but it's also a negative for me, is that I have a very obsessive personality. So, you know, I explained to my wife when I first met her, I was like, look, when I was a kid, like when I was in 6th grade in elementary school, my mom would work and I'd have to let myself into my house after school. So she gave me a key to the house that I wore on a string around my neck. I became so fascinated with keys that I went around starting to gather them up, collecting them. Especially, I love skeleton keys. The more, you know, they really were cool. But I'd find different shapes, different colors, different styles of keys, different teeth, and then started learning everything I could about locks and about keys. And then by the time I was done, I had the old bead, bathtub bead necklace, you know, the metal chain necklace that you clasp. I'd had that thing filled from shoulder to shoulder with keys that I'd wear every day, to the point to where I started getting green. You know, like my shirt would be dirty from the dirt from the keys, and I'd get green around my neck. I went through a phase where I collected beer cans, you know, so of course that became obsessive. But I wear watches because I like to wear them. I'm used to it. I can't track time at all. So I have no sense of it. So in a lot of times I wear the watch because everybody says, why do you wear a watch? You've got your phones. Because I can just turn my wrist up. Because if I get on a plane and like I'm flying to Pennsylvania and I know consciously it's an hour flight, if for whatever reason, like I run out of stuff to read or to keep myself mentally occupied while I'm on the flight, because I don't know how long it is that I've been on the flight, if I don't look at my watch, that happens, which it has, then I start to get a lot of anxiety because I can't figure out how long we've been in the air and why we're not already on the ground. And it's supposed to be an hour flight, but I don't know how long we've been there. So it could have been 2, 3, 4 hours. I start having trouble with that. And it just gets worse. Car rides, same thing. Meetings. When I used to do the production meetings with Impact Wrestling, so and sometimes it's not like, for me, the sense of time is not always really long. Sometimes I can be in there doing things for several hours, and I thought only 15 minutes went by. So I do wear the watches for that reason, but I also, because I just love the art and the mechanical art of the watches. So when I look for them, I try to find something unique and has a certain style to it. And I've got probably right now, because I haven't bought any recently. Then I do that too. I'll go through a phase where I won't buy any for a while, and then all of a sudden I'll get back on it and I'll sell a few so I can basically not feel guilty about buying new ones, because I'll be like, well, I sold 4 or 5, so it's okay that I bought these 2. So but I've got a few quartz operated watches, battery operated watches, and that have different movements in them. I'm not really all that about the movements, because they really start to I like the higher quality movements, for sure, but I don't get so caught up in the movements, because if you don't really understand or know just what goes in to make them so accurate, then there's no point, because when you're walking down the street, nobody's going to go, hey, that's a such and such, and it has a such and such movement in it. But for instance, like I bought a Russian. I like a lot of Russian watches, Russian brand, Russian made, like Rakita or Moyina, Polyet, and I bought this Russian dive watch. It was a Denisov, Denisov, and I got it on eBay for a couple $100. And, I walked past this, literally walking past a jewelry store in Las Vegas, and the guy that was in the jewelry store noticed it from a distance and was like, "Oh, you've got a Denisov. Oh, that's a really good watch." It is. He goes, "Yeah, that's like the Rolex of Russia." And I was like, wow, I didn't know I had something like that. So that's kind of neat. I bought it because of the appearance of it, and that it was a Russian watch. And turns out that it's a really high quality watch, like a Rolex type watch. And I don't really get into. I love looking at them because some of them are incredibly beautiful, but the really high end brand watches, I wouldn't want to spend that much money for a watch, because then that's the one you're going to wear. You know what I mean? And you feel guilty if you don't wear it. But I like a variety, so I'll wear one for a certain amount of days, and then I'll take it off and I'll wear something else and wear it for a certain amount of days. And I recommend to everybody, if they like watches and they want to get into them, to go with Invicta. It's a very good brand.
And let's be clear, you are not sponsored by them in any way, correct?
I'm not sponsored. No, I wish I was. That'd be cool, but no, I'm not sponsored by Invicta at all. Not at all. But but they have lots of great designs, and they're really a good quality watch, because I've owned Invictus for numerous years, and they're fantastic. The movements in them are really high quality, and I've got mechanical, which means you wind them, and I've got automatic, or watches that are basically they have a counterweight in them. You shake them, and as you move, it winds the watch up for you. And I've never had a problem with any of them. They've all been great. So yeah, the material is really good.
I have a obsession with clocks itself and time, just because my favorite movie is Back to the Future, and I think it all ties in. It's one of the things we can't control is time. We have no, it's going to happen, going to keep going on regardless. So and then when it comes to watches and clocks, I'm kind of the same way. I like the unique have so many unique styles myself all around my house. But one of the questions in our chat is Brian Mosley asked, "What's the most expensive watch though you have?"
Probably the most expensive one that I've ever gotten. I got years ago. It was a Hamilton automatic. It was a Elvis Presley double extra large Ventura. Ventura watch, Hamilton watch it's like, if you imagine like an arrowhead, and but this had just the design of it had a screen on in the face, like a mesh screen. I liked the Ventura styling. The problem with the Venturas though is that they're a little hard to tell time. You can't just look at it because the shape of the watch, you got to kind of decipher it. I've got a Men in Black one like that as well, from back in, it has on a date on the side of 2007. So it was a limited Hamilton Ventura. It's smaller than the Elvis Presley one was like about 48 millimeters. I love that watch. It was really cool. And it probably cost me, I splurged because I sold a couple of other watches to get it, and I bought it, but it was like $1,200, and that's like, for me, that's going a little crazy, paying $1,200 for a watch. Normally I wouldn't do it, but I really liked it and I was fixated on it and I wanted it. And they normally go for about $1,600 and I got it for 12.
That's still a significant discount. All things considered.
Yeah. But like I said, I sold a few of the other ones. I had a beautiful Invicta, and I still do. I've got a couple still, but I had it was a Pro Diver model, and it has diamonds on the bezel, and it had a meteorite dial. I got that pretty inexpensively too, because it was missing a few links, which those links were expensive to get because you had to order them directly from Invicta for the watch, and they were tough to get and not easy. So, but if you're out, you look out there, and I've got some German brand watches like Aromatique and Trius. They're awesome, unique designs. They're automatics. One of them is I have a copper. It's made of copper. The case, German diving watch, and it has like the canteen crown protector on it with the little chain, and helps seal the watch, make it waterproof. And the patina on the copper, or it's brass. I'm sorry, brass, not copper. Yeah, the patina on it now, as it's getting older, is looking really. It looks really cool. So, I got 1 or 2 Panerés, Invictas, Croton, Croton. I've got a few of those. They make a really good fine watch, and nice designs. Have a few, several Russian, like I said. So I've probably got right now, probably 60, 65. I lost a big chunk of them a while back, got stolen. But I've still got probably 60 or so of them, 60 or 65 of them. Why do I need 65 watches? I don't know. That's part of the obsession that I go through.
Well, people have their own different interests, and people collect different things. Myself, as I'm sure I wouldn't consider myself a bourbon expert, but I'm an enthusiast, and I collect random things. So, everyone has their own little thing that they are interested in. And speaking of another unique interest that you have, though, one thing that especially me as a physical therapist, I think is actually very cool is the style of training that you partake in, at least as far as working with the clubs, the weighted clubs. I think is a great form of training, one that I'm not actually as familiar with, but I've seen a lot of the stuff that you've posted on social media, and I was curious as to when did you start getting into that, and what benefits have you found with it? And I guess in addition, if you have any advice for people that are wanting to maybe get into that.
Well, first off, I tell everybody that it works for me. Everybody's different. It may not work for them, that style of training. But how I got into it was that, I had been training since, and I mean training, not just working out, like, guys to just keep in shape. Like, I trained from the time I was 16 years old because I wanted to be a professional wrestler. And, I had used every type of method that came down the pipe. If it was in Muscle and Fitness or one of the bodybuilding magazines, I was like, oh, I'm going to try that, and I just didn't feel like I was getting the results I wanted. And I was starting to get bored, you know what I mean? Where it was like, okay, no matter how you changed it up, you just came in, you picked something up, you put it down, you pushed it, you pulled it. That was it, and I thought there's got to be something different. So one time I had read an article and had started to train like that. They had put a training routine out in Muscle Fitness. It was a strongman, how to prepare for a strongman competition training routine. And I loved it. It was different than anything else I had done. The movements, a lot of the movements were different, and I got a lot better results from it in a lot of different ways.
Around what time was this, would you say? Sorry.
Don't know.
Okay.
I was living here in Louisville,
Okay.
and I was training at the LAC. So, it was probably shortly after I had left OVW the first time, when WWE and had taken off with and the developmental
Gotcha.
had closed.
Maybe 08, 09.
Oh yeah.
Somewhere in there probably.
Okay.
So I started getting an interest in the strongman training, and because it really, not only did it help me as far as I started filling out more and things like that, but performance-wise in the ring, because I don't need to tell you guys, like, the only thing that will get you physical conditioning in the ring is to be in the ring, but training this way started to really help me improve on that, as far as, because we have to literally do such dynamic tension for such long periods, and then we have to explode, and we have to run, and then we have to go back to dynamic tension, and then we have to explode, and there's so much of that happens that you start breathing like a freight train, and no matter how much you run or you do on the treadmill, or you do elliptical or any things, they just don't quite simulate you when you strike the mat, get the wind knocked out of you, and you now get back to your feet and get moving again, and dynamic tension again, and now you get struck to the mat again, and now you're back up and you're moving, and that explosiveness takes a lot burns up the oxygen in your blood really quick. So I started Googling old-time strongmen from like the late 1800s, early 1900s, because I stumbled upon this amazing website, and unfortunately they've changed it. Probably because they got in trouble or whatever, I'm sure. But it was called the Golden Age of Strongmen.com, and it was all of these old-time strongmen and old wrestlers and strongmen that were from like the late 1800s on, that they would make training manuals, and you could download the entire training manual on there, and you could see the techniques that they used. And I think it was Louis Cyr. I'd read his book, and that was what changed my mind. He was like, you don't lift weights to lift weights. You lift weights to practice the technique on how to lift heavier weight. It was not, it was a totally different mindset. It was no different than if you practice baseball, or you practice basketball and become good at it, adept at it, the technique of it. And because that was how a lot of them mastered being able to lift such huge weights when they would go out and do these physical acts on stage to impress an audience, and unusual weights, because it comes down to a matter of relatability. Like if they pick up the weight of a horse in a barbell, nobody knows how heavy that is. But if you pick up the horse itself and holding it above, with a special made belt, you can see photos of a guy doing that, then that's more impressive. You've picked up the horse, because people know that horse. They relate more to the idea of the weight of a horse than they do the weight of the horse in a barbell. And so the big turning point was I had Googled George Hackenschmidt, who was a world heavyweight champion wrestler back in the early 1900s. And the guy looks amazing. I mean, he just, and every time I would see pictures of him or pictures of any of these guys, their builds, their conditioning, they looked, incredible. And now let's keep in mind, this was back during the time when they didn't know what calories were. They didn't know protein, carbs, nothing as far as a diet.
And I believe most of them had handlebar mustaches, if I believe right.
Some, not all of them. Some of them did, yeah. I think Louis Cyr did, yeah. George Hackenschmidt didn't. He looks like a badass. But they just looked incredible. And of course, they didn't have steroids back then either. And I thought, what are these people doing to look like that? I mean, I'm going to start doing what they do. So that was the turning point. I started adopting a lot of those training methods. They had when I got involved with the maces and the clubs and the Sheena boards, was when on that website they had a section of Indian physical culture. The Indian culture was, as far as physical adeptness, has went back centuries. So I started looking at a lot of the things that they would do, and then started incorporating that as well. Like one of the most successful wrestlers, I think he had, and this is back when it was not a work, but a shoot, 300 matches over his career or something. Was undefeated the entire career. Even Bruce Lee studied Great Gamma, and what he would do. I mean, they with the squats and the push-ups, and then using the mace to train, and they have Indian clubs or Persian clubs, and then they have meals, which meals they're a larger club that are purposely built to be heavier the further away from the handles. So they're a little more awkward because of their size and their bulk, and to work with, and to make it more of a challenge. So I started using the Indian clubs, and at the time couldn't find any because it was tough to find them, and still, like the meals themselves, I would love to get a pair of those, but can't find them anywhere. So I got these. They were basically cut baseball bats that had a 10-pound weight on the end of them attached to them. I still have them, and I started using those and watching YouTube videos, and getting some of the movements. And then I bought a 2-pound pair. I have a 5-pound pair, an 18-pound pair, and a 26-pound pair. What's fascinating is that you think 2 pounds, it's not much, but it's the 2 pounds is away from your hand, so it creates a different dynamic. And they have a lot of different movements that work, that when you use them, the clubs themselves will not just work your shoulders, but they do your chest, all of your arms, obviously, and your hands. And they have these, it takes a lot of practice to do some of the more intricate movements, but they also encourage where you use both hands, where you do alternate movements with your hands. And that takes so much practice, because it now is forcing your brain, both sides of your brain, to work together, and also teaching your muscles, to fire those neurons to be able to do those movements. And they're really good. And it's never boring now when I work out. I always challenge myself and push myself, and it's made a big difference for me. Really big difference. I do less of what you would call a bodybuilding workout, and more of a functional lift. Everything's compound movements, things like that, more so now than I've ever done before. And for me, it's turned out really well. So.
and you just use my favorite word I use with patients all the time, functional. Functional training should be part of everybody's training. And you're right, it's not for everybody. And I'll say that to patients too. Some patients ask if they should do yoga or this or that, but I'd say if you're physically capable of being able to start lightly, it is a great form of exercise. And you talk about that weight at the end, that torque that it creates is just huge. And the best way I describe it for patients that, if their head's too far forward and I try to get them to pull back, the best way to describe torque, if you were to take a gallon of water or a gallon of milk and hold it right next to you, you could hold it there all day. When you bring it out away from you like that, you're good to last a minute. So when you're training with these weights, even a light weight at the end of that, and be able to rotate and control and maneuver, like you said, when you're having the hand-eye coordination from passing the hands in different ways, it's a great way to train. And it actually really opened my eyes, because I didn't even realize that was a big area of physical exercise. I was really unaware of it. So it was really cool when I saw you posting stuff like that. I do have to ask though, only because I know I've seen him do it a few times. Have you ever had any exchanges or got any advice from the Iron Sheik as far as any of his techniques or anything like that?
No, but of course, because the Iron Sheik was, he had won the silver medal for Iran,
Right.
And the
I didn't know if you asked him for any pointers.
I've never gotten the chance to, but he trained a lot with the Persian meals and with with those clubs. I mean, he did a lot of training. They did a lot of training with the maces and stuff. The Persians and the Indian culture, a lot of that physical culture goes, again, like I said, goes back centuries, and all of the wrestlers all train, with the clubs and with the maces, and and then they've got that piece that I just got this sent to me from a guy on Instagram, very nice guy, has an account called Persian Yoga, and he sent me a Sheena board, and really all it is it's a wooden board, and it's maybe up 3 inches, these blocks of wood, but you use it to be able to do certain types of push-ups and get a greater depth and stretch when you're doing them. So
cool.
Now, somebody we all know has a question in here, and I don't know this. I think this is more of a rib, being that you told us this a story about this privately before. But Dave Harmon,
what's Dave's question? I can
wants to know who cuts Al's grass. That's what
who cuts Al's grass?
Yes, yeah.
Well, I don't need to get over anymore, so I can tell you I cut my grass, or I have my kid cut my grass. Back in the day, I learned quickly not to cut my own grass.
I think that means Dave's going to start cutting your grass now. It's probably
yeah. If somebody's going to be cutting my grass, it's going to be Dave Harmon's going to be cutting my goddamn grass.
Speaking of story,
go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of stories, so we started an interesting, I guess, tradition last week in that we're going to start passing the question. And so a previous guest is going to ask our next guest a question. And then Al, you're going to subsequently, and you do know the guest we'll have next week, we're going to have you ask a question for them. But last week we had Ben Hameen on here, who we had some interactions with back in OVW days. Well, his OVW days, OVW day for us are still going strong.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that here in a minute too. But he wanted to know, what is it like to see strippers by candlelight?
What's it like? Well, I have to explain this because I used to, the boys would purposely take me to strip clubs where there were ugly strippers, and I would get very angry. And the reason I do, and I normally, me, I don't get very angry very often, but the only thing that really upsets me, really, quite honestly, because it's impossible to offend me. But what upsets me, though, is when stuff doesn't make sense, when 1 and 1 is not 2, when you've sold me a particular thing and then I paid for it and I didn't get what I bought. And then you just stand there like, what are you complaining about? So I used to, when I'd find the ugly strippers, because that's not what I bought. That's not what I paid the cover charge for. I didn't pay to see a woman who, I don't want to see dressed in Walmart. Now I'm seeing her naked on a stage. It looks like my mom with a thong or something. I don't want that. That was not what we agreed to. So I would go and complain to management. Sometimes the guys got a kick out of it. I would go in and I'd get our money back because I was like, look, it was daylight when you hired her. Okay. So there's no excuse for this. You knew what you were doing, and then you sold me something else. So, but that it became annoying. You know, you go to the ones where you get the attractive girls and they're just workers like we are. So it became a dance of who's going to outwork who and who's a mark for who. And, you know, it wasn't fun, you know. But so then I embraced the idea of ugly strippers, you know, and I'm sure they're all beautiful on the inside, but let's face it, they're, you know, this sounds sexist, but it's not. It's a matter of selling a product. And,
well, I mean,
you know,
you could look at a wrestling. You look at some of these rinky-dink, and I hate to say, but there are, you know, these wrestling shows out there. Same thing, guys that don't look like athletes. You look like you could jump in the ring and beat them up. It's like, what's the point?
Exactly.
But, you know, I digress.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely 100% right. And that's what frustrates me with those things. And, you know, and you know, let's face it, if you are men go to a strip club for aesthetically pleasing women. I go because I get a story, because I like going to them, like the one that was over on 7th Street. And, you know, the one stripper was a little heavy, not very attractive, and she was missing from her elbow down her arm. You know, it was gone. You know, that I find fascinating. I just, you know, the fact that she, you know, and God bless her for being brave enough to still get up there and, you know, get naked and swing around a pole, except for when her hand got slippery and she fell because she couldn't grab with the nub and down to you know, or, you know, one of these on Arkansas one time, and I literally watched, I believe, because she had a baby bump, I swear she had a miscarriage on stage, and, you know, and then another of the girls was dancing and then collapsed, and I was like, nobody seemed to care. I called the cocktail waitress. I'm like, is she okay? And she goes, she'll kick out in a song or two. And sure enough, the next song started and she came back up off the floor and started dancing again. I was like, this is amazing. Wow. So if watching strippers by candlelight, which probably is probably the better way to do it for me, because that way the darker it gets, the more attractive they are. You know, beauty's only a light switch away, boys. So you can
or paper bag in some cases. But that's
paper bag,
thing.
right.
So
click, you're hot. Click, you're not.
Yeah. So we're all kind of wearing a shirt from that you know, company here, a company that you started and a few years ago in Collar and Elbow. Tell us a little bit about what made you decide to go to that direction and start a wrestling brand, as you call it.
Well, yeah, it was like a lifestyle brand. You know, I just felt like, you know, fans of football, basketball, baseball, everybody had some kind of brand that represented their passion for the thing that they enjoyed. You know, with football's Under Armour, you know, basketball's kind of Nike's realm. You know, you have all these different brands for those fans, and you know, for a while with even mixed martial arts, you know, Tap Out was a brand that kind of represented, you know, the fans of mixed martial arts. You know, if you were a fan and you saw somebody wearing a Tap Out shirt, you know, you could relate at a party or something. And
you can make fun of all the people that wear affliction shirts.
yeah. But you know, I felt like for us, the wrestling fans, because at the end of the day, that's what we all are. We're just, you know, fans of professional wrestling, of the drama and the excitement and the emotional connection born out of, you know, physical stories being told within a competitive context, that we needed something too. And, you know, a lot of the wrestling merchandise, and still to this day, a little bit of it's, you know, a lot of them, it's just a picture of the wrestler on somebody's chest. And it's like, I'm a grown man. I don't want another grown man's face on my chest. I mean, it's just weird for me. You know, and I didn't want to wear the typical wrestling designs that when you went out, you had to be a little self-conscious because you knew there was going to be that one person that's going to go, oh, why are you wearing that, man? Didn't you know that wrestling's fake? And it's like, well, congratulations, Angela Lansbury. How long did it take you to figure that out on Murder, She Wrote? You know, you put all the clues together. I mean, So it just, I wanted to create something that we had really cool kind of designs that if you're not a wrestling fan, you just go, wow, that's a cool shirt. And if you are a wrestling fan, within the design, there is either a phrase or a nuance or just even like the name of the company, Collar and Elbow, because every wrestling match, 99% of the time starts with a collar and elbow tie-up. You would see that and it would click for you if you saw somebody else at the show or at an event wearing the shirt, and you go, oh yeah, I know, well, that's cool, man. I like wrestling too. But then you didn't have to subject yourself to listening to the moron that doesn't like wrestling, wanting to make sure that he reveals to the world that it's fake, and we went out of our way to find the really nice fitting and quality t-shirts that, like you dig through your drawer because you want to wear them all the time. Instead of just those heavy, thick, almost bulletproof cotton t-shirts that a lot of places still sell. They're cheap and, nobody really likes them. So they just like the design on there or the brand of what they're buying.
Officer Bennett says that you should now have a shirt design that says "Beauty is the only a light switch away." So, I would wear it. So
I'm sure, and because and I say this all the time, and I want people to understand that I am responsible 100% for everything I say, but I am not responsible for what you understand. So I know I'm going to get some kind of grief about the whole conversation about strip clubs. He's so sexist, and spare me.
I don't think Dave Meltzer's watching, so we should be okay.
I'm sure he's not. He he has no interest in me or what we're doing at OVW at all for some reason. So, and I don't care.
Speaking of getting fired up, another one of our colleagues that sometimes get fired up behind the scenes, and sometimes even on the scenes, our colleague Gilbert Coursey. We're going to do a deep dive with him next week to find out the life of a local television news anchor and what that means. So, Al, you get to ask a question for our friend Gilbert, and we want to know, what would you like to know from Gilbert?
I'd like to know what Gilbert's legal middle name is.
Okay.
There've been a lot of speculation by some of our other hosts who have thrown out names of Gilbert Elaine Coursey.
We can say this would be a good time to plug on OVW Overdrive, which is our morning show. Brian Kinnison and Steve Johnson have, I think, each week. So is it different each week? Is that the?
Yeah. Gilbert Elaine was the first. I think Gilbert Abigail Coursey, Gertrude Coursey. There's been several attempts at trying to discern just exactly what his middle name is, because he doesn't use it. So, if you could ask him that would help to maybe alleviate some of the mystery.
We've just been making fun of him for weeks now, and he doesn't put it over. He acts like it doesn't bother him, even though we know it does.
He's also got a lot of relatives at OVW too, apparently cousins and brothers. And
the Gilpinator is apparently his cousin. Justin Gilpin. Yeah. So
twice removed.
Yeah. So now we've got the Gilbertinator. So it's so ask him what his middle name is. That would help to solve a lot of
legal middle name.
Legal.
Yeah, they're always questioning it, and you can catch that if you're local to Louisville. You can catch that here on Saturday mornings. If not, it is uploaded to YouTube. That's OVW Overdrive, and of course, OVW TV comes on YouTube America nationwide. So check your local cable listings. It comes on generally Friday night, so be sure to check out
Friday nights at midnight Eastern time. Yeah,
that's right. So 9 p.m. on the West Coast. And we're still putting out TV, new TV every week. We're looking back at some of classic OVW, but doing a little more deep dive on some of the goings on over the years, and still putting on a new product every week for fans.
It's been a blessing and a curse. I mean, it's a curse because it's really a challenge to try to come up with a creative and entertaining new show in this situation. But it's a blessing because, as you mentioned, like we're on the YTA network on a national level, which we weren't prior. I mean, we literally went on that network, I think, like a week after this started or something.
Yeah.
And but it's been a blessing because it gives us the ability to catch the national audience up to, know who the players are, what is going on and why, and the history and the storylines and all of that, so that they can follow along when we get back to normal operations again.
Absolutely. Well, Al, this hour has flown by. Actually, I feel like we just
it's an hour
on things. So
oh.
I mean,
we have you. Go ahead.
We can go a few more minutes if you got another question. We just told we got a couple more minutes to go.
Awesome. Well, what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure we had time, though. We plugged OVW and everything. I wanted to plug Collar and Elbow and whatever social media channels where people can catch you, Al, or if there's anything particular else that you wanted to make sure that we mentioned while we had you here.
Well, you can they can follow me on social media at The Real Al Snow, because at the time, before the blue check marks, I did have some imposters. I know that's a surprise. And then if you're out there and you want to make a fake account of me, go ahead. I'm going to just message you and go, look, aim the bar higher. I mean, if you're going to fake being a celebrity, for God's sakes, aim like to be. If I were going to do it, I'd be Brad Pitt or George Clooney, or you know what I mean? I'd be something like that. I wouldn't be Al Snow. So smarten up. If anybody wants to find out more information on our trade school, because we are the only state accredited 2-year trade school for professional wrestling, sports entertainment, and broadcasting in the world, not just in the country, but in the world.
Yeah, it's not just wrestling either. Because we get a lot of questions. I'll say someone that takes a lot of our Facebook messages, people all the time say, do we offer any courses for people that don't want to get physically involved and just want to be behind the scenes? And absolutely.
Yeah, we teach those skills so you can have a career, behind the scenes as well. Because that way, and I always use these two as a great example. James Long, who came to us, in OVW as a wrestler, and then self-taught himself, lighting, sound, editing, all of those things. He now, I helped get him hired with Impact Wrestling, and then he was part of the production team, and is now a key element in WWE's production team. He's,
right. He just, I don't know, I'm sure you heard the news. He recently even had a hand in the that Undertaker match they had at WrestleMania that a lot of people have been putting over.
And before that was the final deletion with Matt Hardy. So
right, yeah. And
another one too is Jessie Whitney. She's Tommaso Ciampa's wife. I met Jessie on Tough Enough 2. She got eliminated. She came back as an intern with MTV for season 3, and then WWE hired her as a backstage producer out of that, and then she went on from being a backstage producer to then becoming a television producer for major networks all over the world, and has had an incredibly successful career. So it's not a matter of if your in-ring career is going to come to an end. At some point in time, it will. And if you have skills that allow you to still be of value within the wrestling business, you can continue to have another career still in the business that you love. So if anybody has any interest or has questions, they can go to aswa.live and they can get more information on the world's only trade school for professional wrestling, sports entertainment, and broadcasting.
Awesome. And also, as we mentioned, OVW TV is also here on Zingo TV that this network is on too as well. So through Roku devices, download that and you can watch it there. If you can't get it on YTA, you can definitely get it on Zingo TV. So many chances to catch OVW television.
And if they want to, they can go to our streaming network, which is ovwwrestlingnetwork.com. Yes, I know that's redundant, but some people don't know the W in OVW is wrestling. So I had to do that so that they know what they were getting. And you can get a month's free subscription. And after that, it's only $4.99 a month. And we put all our content up there. We have a library of, I think we're nearing 1,100 consecutive television shows right now, not to mention well over 100 Saturday night specials, which are like our big show, like a pay-per-view type of show.
And a lot of times they don't even have the DVDs of those out, so literally that's the only place you can catch it. There's also a couple of really cool seminars on there too for those that are inclined to want to learn more on the wrestling craft. I believe we have one with Billy Gunn and I think Hurricane and Tommy Dreamer as well.
We'll be putting up additional ones of those. Once we get back into the swing of things, that'll all be back up and running as well. So
Chad Miller just said it's crazy that it's only charging $4.99. So that, I don't know why he. I guess he's trying to think that it should cost more, which I think it should cost more too. So only $4.99. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is pretty good. We're trying to, but we're wanting to build an audience worldwide, and and show just everybody, and I do mean everyone's hard work and creativity and passion that we put here every single week. It's, in my experience, it's one thing, and I'm not downplaying anybody. There are a lot of great other wrestling promotions and things out there that you can watch, independent promotions, but they operate on a monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly basis. It's one thing to promote a singular event, but it's another when you're trying to operate an actual, still living, breathing territory with a ongoing weekly television show. That's dramatically different, and I think that we can all be very proud of what we have built over the last, what has it been? Has it been 2 years? I don't know.
It's been about 2 years.
A year. And we've made great strides, and we've done so many things. Really, if you think about it, from where we started to where we're at, the events, the number of big events that we've done, and live television specials, and and we're only going to go bigger and further and go farther. I mean, we're now have a national platform with a national audience that we'll be able to expose the talent to, and hopefully through things like this, and I'm working on some deals overseas for television, and we'll start to expand and bring it to a worldwide audience as well.
Very cool. Looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Well, Al, we appreciate you coming on and spending time with us here on this Sunday afternoon, and finding out exactly what makes you tick. Well,
good luck. I haven't figured that out myself yet, but if this is given any insight, then I'm amazed, because I've been working on that for 57 years now.
Well, either way, it was an enjoyable conversation, and would love to hopefully have you back sometime in the near future. Like I said, I feel like we really just kind of scratched the surface on things. Although I do like the idea of maybe also getting Revolver on here and having some diatribes, and so that way we can expose him to the world and just see what makes.
We should leave him hidden and locked up, is what I think. It's bad enough, especially now that he's bored, and occasionally I'll see the random Facebook post where he's poking the bear, and purposely. It's like, stop. But he gets bored, so he has to do something. So
got to let him out of his cage sometimes.
You have to, yeah.
But either way, well, be sure to check out Collar and Elbow for all your wrestling apparel. Check out OVW Overdrive. If you're not regional Louisville, you can check it out on YouTube. OVW TV on YouTube America. Be sure to check your local cable listings, or check your Zingo TV and Roku box listings. Al, once again, thank you. It's been our pleasure and privilege. Be sure to check out all the great things OVW is doing. For Daniel Spencer, I am the Doc, and we thank you once again for joining us for another episode of What Makes You Tick.